At the center of this tragedy were three individuals whose lives had become inextricably entangled. Veronica Hartley, the vivacious local real estate agent with a picture-perfect life. Her husband, Damien Hartley, the town's beloved high school chemistry teacher. And Fiona Blackwood, Veronica's best friend and confidant, a quiet librarian with hidden depths. To the outside world, these three represented the very best of Centerville. Hard-working, friendly, and deeply involved in their community. But beneath the surface of potlucks and PTA meetings, a dangerous undercurrent was forming. A seemingly innocent plan born from one woman's insecurity would set in motion a chain of events that would lead to passion, betrayal, and ultimately, death. Veronica and Damien Hartley's love story was the stuff of small-town legend. They met on a sweltering summer day in 2010 at the annual Centerville 4th of July picnic. Then Veronica Caldwell was manning the lemonade stand, her hair gleaming in the sunlight. Damien, newly arrived in town to take up his teaching position, was instantly smitten. Their courtship was a whirlwind of stolen glances across crowded rooms, late-night conversations on Veronica's porch swing, and shared dreams of a future filled with love and laughter. Within 6 months, Damien had proposed, presenting Veronica with a modest diamond ring atop the Mill Road Bridge at sunset. Their wedding, held the following spring in the town square, was the social event of the year. From the outside, the Hartleys seemed to have it all. Damien quickly became a favorite among students and faculty alike. His passion for science infectious, and his gentle demeanor endearing him to even the most troublesome teens. Veronica's career in real estate flourished, her natural charm and business acumen, making her the go-to agent for anyone buying or selling in Centerville. They bought a charming house on Maple Street, replete with a white picket fence and a sprawling backyard, perfect for the family they hoped to start. Their home became a hub for social gatherings, from summer barbecues to holiday parties. To their friends and neighbors, Veronica and Damien were the golden couple, living proof that true love could conquer all. But as the years passed, cracks began to form in their seemingly perfect facade. The children they had dreamed of never came. Despite numerous attempts and medical interventions, the strain of infertility took its toll, leading to quiet arguments behind closed doors and a growing distance between them. Veronica threw herself into her work, staying late at the office and taking on more clients than ever. Damien found solace in his lab, spending long hours after school working on various experiments and tutoring struggling students. They still presented a united front to the world, but those closest to them began to notice the strain. As their 5th anniversary approached, Veronica found herself plagued by doubts and insecurities. She began to wonder if Damien's late nights at school were really about work, or if there might be someone else. The seed of suspicion, once planted, grew rapidly in the fertile soil of her imagination. Fiona Blackwood arrived in Centerville in the summer of 2015, taking over as head librarian after old Mrs. Perkins finally retired. With her quiet demeanor, Fiona stood out in a town full of blonde, outgoing Midwesterners. She kept to herself at first, more comfortable among her beloved books than at the various social functions that seemed to dominate Centerville's calendar. It was Veronica who first reached out to the newcomer, dropping by the library one afternoon with a welcome basket filled with local treats. Something about Fiona's shy smile and quick wit resonated with Veronica, and soon the two women were inseparable. They bonded over their shared love of mystery novels, their frustration with small-town politics, and their secret dreams of adventure beyond Centerville's borders. As Veronica's marriage to Damien grew strained, she found herself confiding more and more in Fiona. The librarian became a sounding board for Veronica's fears and insecurities, always ready with a sympathetic ear and a comforting word. For Fiona, who had never had many close friends, Veronica's friendship was a lifeline in a town where she still felt like an outsider. Growing up in foster care, she had never known the stability of a loving family. Her romantic history was a series of brief, painful encounters that left her wary of opening her heart. She envied the Hartleys' seemingly perfect relationship, even as she listened to Veronica's growing doubts. In quiet moments alone in her small apartment above the library, Fiona would sometimes allow herself to imagine what it would be like to have a love like Veronica and Damien's. She pushed these thoughts away, feeling guilty for even entertaining them. After all, Veronica was her best friend, and Damien was off limits. Little did Fiona know that her loyalty to Veronica would soon be put to the ultimate test, one that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, friendship, and herself. As the Hartleys' 6th wedding anniversary approached, Veronica's paranoia about Damien's fidelity reached a fever pitch. Every late night at the school, every text message he quickly hid from view, every distracted moment during their conversations became evidence of his potential infidelity in her mind. One balmy evening in late August, as Veronica sat alone on her porch swing, nursing a glass of white wine and scrolling through her phone, she came across an article about loyalty testing. The piece described how some people hired actors or convinced friends to flirt with their partners to test their faithfulness. The idea took root in Veronica's mind, growing and twisting until it seemed like the only logical solution to her doubts. The following day, Veronica invited Fiona over for coffee. As they sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the aroma of fresh muffins, Veronica hesitantly brought up her concerns about Damien's faithfulness. She confided in Fiona, expressing her fears and doubts about her relationship. To Fiona's astonishment, Veronica then made an unexpected and troubling request. She asked Fiona to test Damien's loyalty. By attempting to seduce him, Fiona was taken aback, nearly spilling her coffee in shock. She immediately voiced her objections, assuring Veronica of Damien's love and commitment. However, Veronica persisted, outlining a detailed plan for Fiona to flirt with Damien and potentially even kiss him. She tried to justify it as a simple test of his fidelity, claiming it would either confirm her trust in him or reveal the truth if he was unfaithful. Fiona strongly disagreed with the idea, pointing out the ethical problems and potential consequences. She emphasized how this plan could damage both Damien's trust and their own friendship. Despite her misgivings, Veronica pleaded with Fiona, appealing to their close bond and her desperate need for certainty. After a tense moment of internal conflict, Fiona reluctantly agreed to Veronica's request. However, she made it clear that she believed this was a grave mistake. The atmosphere in the kitchen had shifted from friendly to uncomfortable, as both women grappled with the implications of their decision. As Fiona left the Hartley house that day, a sense of foreboding settled over her. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just agreed to something that would change all their lives forever. Little did she know just how prophetic that feeling would prove to be. The plan was set in motion on a warm September evening at the annual Centerville Fall Festival. The town square was alive with the sounds of laughter, music, and the enticing aroma of funnel cakes and barbecue. Strings of fairy lights twinkled overhead, casting a romantic glow over the festivities. Fiona arrived later than usual, her hair styled in loose waves and her eyes accentuated by subtle makeup. She wore a flowy sundress that was a departure from her usual conservative attire. As she made her way through the crowd, she spotted Damien manning the dunking booth, his t-shirt clinging to his lean frame as he good-naturedly taunted the students trying to dunk him. As the festival bustled around them, Fiona steeled herself and approached Damien's booth. She greeted him with an uncharacteristically flirtatious tone, catching him off guard. Damien responded politely, but immediately inquired about Veronica's whereabouts, much to Fiona's disappointment. Undeterred, Fiona continued her act, hinting at seeking excitement for the evening. Damien, though friendly, seemed slightly perplexed by her behavior. Over the next hour, Fiona persisted in her attempts to flirt with Damien, employing various tactics from exaggerated laughter to subtle touches. Each time, Damien maintained a cordial demeanor, but his growing discomfort was evident. As the night progressed, Fiona found herself unexpectedly enjoying Damien's company, appreciating qualities in him she had never noticed before. This realization only intensified her feelings of guilt about the deception. In a final bold move, Fiona suggested they meet for coffee, just the two of them. Damien's response was immediate and unequivocal. He gently but firmly rejected her advance, reminding her of his marriage to her best friend. Confused and uncomfortable, he excused himself and left. Fiona was left alone, experiencing a complex mix of emotions. Relief at Damien's loyalty ward with an unexpected twinge of disappointment. As she made her way home, she found herself unable to shake thoughts of Damien, realizing that this experience had altered her perception of him in ways she hadn't anticipated. In the days following the fall festival, both Damien and Fiona found themselves grappling with unexpected emotions. Damien, confused and troubled by Fiona's behavior, began to see her in a new light. He found himself noticing things he'd overlooked before, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, the grace with which she moved, the depth of knowledge she possessed on a wide range of subjects. Fiona, for her part, was racked with guilt over her deception. She knew she should tell Veronica about Damien's loyalty, but something held her back. Every time she thought about that night, she remembered not just her awkward attempts at flirtation, but the genuine connection she'd felt with Damien. Their paths crossed frequently in the small town, and each encounter was charged with a new tension. At the grocery store, their hands brushed, reaching for the same apple, sending an electric current through them both. At a school board meeting, their eyes met across the room, holding for a beat too long before they both looked away. Flustered, Damien threw himself into his work, staying at school later than ever. Fiona buried herself in books, reorganizing the library's entire fiction section just to keep busy. But the more they tried to avoid each other, the more they seemed to collide. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, an unexpected encounter at the library changed everything. As Fiona was closing up, Damien arrived to return some overdue books. Their interaction took an unexpected turn when their hands touched during the exchange. The atmosphere suddenly became charged with tension and unspoken feelings. Damien confessed his inability to stop thinking about Fiona, his voice laden with emotion. Despite her verbal protestation, Fiona found herself drawn closer to him. For a brief moment, they stood on the precipice of a life-altering decision. Then, as if compelled by an irresistible force, they surrendered to their desires and shared a passionate kiss. The realization of what they had done hit them immediately, causing them to pull apart. Fiona expressed shock and dismay at their actions, while Damien, though conflicted, admitted to wanting more. In that quiet moment among the bookshelves, Damien and Fiona had crossed a boundary that would irrevocably alter their lives and relationships. The weight of their actions and the implications for their futures hung heavily in the air, marking the beginning of a complicated and potentially destructive path over the next few weeks. Damien and Fiona's affair blossomed in the shadows of Centerville. They met in secret, stealing moments whenever and wherever they could. The back room of the library became their sanctuary, the place where they could be truly themselves, away from the prying eyes of the town and the weight of their guilt. Their encounters were a heady mix of passion and intellectual connection. They would spend hours discussing books, debating philosophy, and sharing their hopes and dreams. Damien found in Fiona a kindred spirit, someone who challenged him intellectually and understood his passion for knowledge. Fiona, in turn, discovered a depth to Damien that she had never imagined, a sensitivity and complexity that drew her in deeper with each passing day. But their joy was always tinged with the bitter taste of betrayal. Every stolen kiss, every secret touch, was a reminder of the trust they were breaking. Veronica's face haunted them both, her unknowing smile a constant presence in their minds. As the seasons changed, Fiona and Damien found themselves caught in a deepening affair, despite their frequent declarations that they should stop. Their feelings for each other intensified, making their secret increasingly difficult to bear. They began to envision a future together, their discussions evolving from hesitant musings to more concrete plans. One snowy evening, as they sought comfort in each other's company, Damien suggested they leave town and start anew somewhere else, away from their past. The idea thrilled Fiona, but she couldn't ignore the implications for Veronica. Damien acknowledged the pain his actions would cause, but felt compelled to be honest about his feelings for Fiona. For the first time, they openly declared their love for each other, a moment that solidified their commitment to pursuing a life together. With this decision made, they began actively planning their departure from Centerville. They researched new cities and job opportunities, dreaming of a future where they could live openly as a couple. However, the shadow of the hurt they would cause, particularly to Veronica, loomed over their plans, adding a bittersweet note to their anticipation of a new life together. Little did they know that their carefully constructed plans were about to come crashing down around them as the web of lies and betrayal they had woven began to unravel. As Damien and Fiona's affair deepened, Veronica found herself increasingly isolated. The loyalty test she had orchestrated had backfired spectacularly, though she remained unaware of the full extent of the betrayal. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Damien's behavior had changed subtly but noticeably. He was distant, often lost in thought, and his late nights at school had become more frequent than ever. When he was home, he was distracted, his responses to her questions vague and non-committal. Fiona, too, had become elusive. Their weekly coffee dates were often cancelled at the last minute, and when they did meet, Fiona seemed nervous and preoccupied. She avoided eye contact and changed the subject whenever Veronica mentioned Damien. At first, Veronica tried to dismiss her concerns. She told herself she was being paranoid, that her insecurities were clouding her judgment. But as the weeks passed, the evidence became harder to ignore. One evening, while doing laundry, Veronica found a long hair on Damien's shirt, a hair that was decidedly not her own. Another day, she overheard him on the phone, speaking in hushed tones and quickly hanging up when she entered the room. The final straw came when Veronica stopped by the school unexpectedly one afternoon, hoping to surprise Damien with lunch. He wasn't in his classroom or the science lab. When she asked a passing student, they mentioned seeing Mr. Hartley heading towards the library. Heart-pounding, Veronica made her way to the library. Through the window, she saw Damien and Fiona standing close together, their heads bent in intimate conversation. As she watched, Damien reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Fiona's ear, his hand lingering on her cheek. In that moment, Veronica's world shattered. The truth she had been subconsciously avoiding crashed over her like a tidal wave. Her husband and her best friend were having an affair, and it was all her fault. Choking back a sob, Veronica fled the school, her mind reeling with the implications of what she had just witnessed. The tension came to a head one evening as Veronica waited for Damien to return home. When he arrived, she confronted him about his affair with Fiona, having witnessed them together at the library. Damien, caught off guard, attempted to explain but was cut short. Their confrontation was interrupted by Fiona's unexpected arrival. She had come intending to confess, unaware that Veronica already knew. The situation quickly escalated as Veronica, overcome with anger and betrayal, lunged at Fiona. Damien intervened, trying to defuse the situation. In the heat of the moment, Veronica revealed her own deception, the loyalty test she had orchestrated using Fiona. This confession shocked both Damien and Fiona, adding another layer of betrayal to the already complex situation. As the full extent of their collective deceptions came to light, the atmosphere became charged with anger, guilt, and pain. Veronica, realizing Damien and Fiona planned to leave together, reacted with anguish, violently throwing a vase against the wall. The scene ended with the three of them standing amidst the emotional and physical wreckage, each grappling with the consequences of their actions and uncertainties about the future. The perfect lives they thought they had were now irreparably shattered, leaving them to face the aftermath of their choices. The confrontation intensified as Veronica, now eerily calm, confronted Damien and Fiona about their plans to leave together. Damien attempted to explain, but his words only fueled Veronica's anger. Fiona, overcome with guilt, tried to apologize, inadvertently shifting blame to Veronica's initial plan. This sparked a violent reaction from Veronica, who lunged at Fiona. Damien intervened, restraining Veronica, but she managed to scratch his face in her struggle to break free. Using this moment of distraction, Veronica pushed past Damien, advancing towards Fiona. Fiona, backing away from Veronica's advance, tripped over the rug. As she fell, she reached out instinctively, grabbing onto Veronica for support. The momentum of Fiona's fall, combined with Veronica's forward motion, sent them both crashing into the heavy oak bookcase that dominated one wall of the living room. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a sickening creak, the bookcase began to tilt. Damien, seeing what was about to happen, lunged forward with a cry of warning, but he was too late. The bookcase toppled, its considerable weight crushing down on the two women. The sound of splintering wood and shattering glass filled the air, followed by an awful, deafening silence. Damien stood frozen in horror, staring at the pile of debris where Veronica and Fiona had been just moments before. Then, galvanized into action, he began frantically pulling books and broken shelves aside. As he worked, he became aware of a warm, sticky substance on his hands. In the dim light, it took him a moment to realize what it was. Blood, so much blood. A low moan from beneath the wreckage spurred him to redouble his efforts. Someone was still alive. But as Damien continued to dig, a terrible realization dawned on him. Only one of them had survived the fall. The hours following the fatal accident passed in a blur for Damien. His mind, usually so sharp and analytical, seemed to have short-circuited, leaving him operating on pure instinct and adrenaline. As he finally uncovered the bodies, he was confronted with a ghastly scene that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Veronica lay motionless, her eyes open but unseeing, a large gash across her forehead where she had struck the corner of a shelf. Beside her, Fiona stirred weakly, blood matting her hair. In that moment, faced with the horrific consequences of their actions, Damien made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. He couldn't bear the thought of losing them both. With shaking hands, he checked Veronica for a pulse, knowing even as he did so that it was futile. She was gone. Over the next few hours, operating in a state of shock and panic, Damien put into motion a plan that went against everything he believed in. He cleaned the scene as best he could, packing away broken items and rearranging furniture to hide the evidence of the struggle. Then, under the cover of darkness, he carried Veronica's body to his car. The drive to Willow Creek was the longest of Damien's life. Every shadow seemed to hide a witness, every sound the wail of approaching sirens. When he finally reached the old Mill Road Bridge, he hesitated only for a moment, before consigning his wife's body to the murky waters below. Returning home, he found Fiona semi-conscious on the couch where he had left her. Together, they constructed a story. Veronica had stormed out after an argument, taking some clothes in her car. They had assumed she needed some time to cool off. They would report her missing in the morning if she hadn't returned. As dawn broke over Centerville, Detective Elias Reeves received the call about a missing person. Little did he know that this routine report would lead him into one of the most complex and disturbing cases of his career. Over the following weeks, as search parties combed the area and posters of Veronica's smiling face appeared all over town, Damien and Fiona clung to their story and to each other. But as the investigation intensified and inconsistencies in their account began to emerge, both realized that the truth they had tried so hard to bury was clawing its way to the surface. Detective Elias Reeves was a man who prided himself on his ability to read people. In his 20 years on the force, he had developed an almost preternatural sense for when someone was lying. And from the moment he first interviewed Damien Hartley and Fiona Blackwood, his instincts were screaming that something was off. The investigation into Veronica Hartley's disappearance proceeded methodically. Reeves and his team combed through cell phone records, interviewed friends and colleagues, and meticulously reconstructed the events leading up to that fateful night. At first, Damien and Fiona's story seemed to hold up. Several people confirmed seeing Veronica upset in the days before her disappearance. Her car was indeed missing from the Hartley driveway. But as the days turned into weeks, cracks began to appear in their narrative. A breakthrough came when a teenager, fishing off the Mill Road Bridge, hooked onto something heavy. To his horror, he reeled in a waterlogged purse containing Veronica's driver's license. The discovery shifted the focus of the investigation, and soon, dive teams were scouring Willow Creek. As the net tightened around them, Damien and Fiona began to unravel. Fiona, racked with guilt and unable to sleep, became increasingly erratic. During her third interview with Detective Reeves, she broke down, confessing to the affair but insisting that Veronica's death had been an accident. Damien, confronted with Fiona's partial confession, finally crumbled under the weight of his lies. In a marathon 12-hour interrogation, he revealed the whole sordid tale, from Veronica's ill-conceived loyalty test to the tragic accident and his panicked decision to cover it up. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Veronica's body was recovered from Willow Creek. The autopsy confirmed that her death had indeed been caused by blunt force trauma, consistent with the falling bookcase. In the end, both Damien and Fiona were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy to conceal a death. The judge, taking into account the accidental nature of Veronica's death but condemning their subsequent actions, sentenced them each to 15 years in prison. As the gavel fell, sealing their fates, a collective exhale seemed to pass through Centerville. The tragedy had shaken the town to its core, shattering the illusion of small-town innocence and leaving in its wake a community forever changed. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video for more true crime video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video.